so beautiful. Such a joyful, just delightful. Oh, these noodles always bring me so much joy. So we're going to make beef noodles where the beef doesn't suck. I find in restaurants that a lot of the beef noodles, the beef is really tough and really dry, and it's just not really very pleasant. So we're going to make a very pleasant version of that with some little tips and tricks that I've got just for you. So let's start on the beef first. I'm using strip loin today, also known as sirloin depending on where you are in the world, but any kind of tender cut of beef is good for this one. So the secret here is in the slicing first of all. You want to slice on the diagonal, and this is doing two things. One, it's making your beautiful piece of beef go a little bit further because we've got some really thin slices, and two, it's going to mean that the beef cooks really quickly in the pan. The quicker the beef cooks and sears, the more tender it's going to be. So now we need a marinade to work its magic on that beef. Got some soy sauce here and some Chinese Shaoxing wine. So this is going to add a beautiful fragrance, a little bit of flavor. You want to keep this alcohol free, just add a little bit of beef stock instead. And now for the secret ingredients that are going to make all the difference here. First of all, baking soda. Now the baking soda will help the beef to brown quicker in the pan. And again, the quicker that happens, the more tender we can keep our beef. And some corn flour. The corn flour makes the beef, or the outside of the beef, really silky smooth and kind of creates a soft, tender texture in your mouth, which is exactly what we want here. Best thing to do here is get in there with your hands. I want to make sure that each piece of beef gets some love here. So the stir fry sauce, really simple. I want some beef stock, some oyster sauce, some soy sauce, and a little touch of vinegar. I think this is one of the other secret ingredients that kind of makes the whole dish really super special. You'll be surprised, you get that kind of kick of beautiful tanginess. A little dash of sugar, and then a little bit more corn flour here, this time mixed with some water. Now the noodles that we're using for this one, we're using fresh rice noodles. This is what you'll find at an Asian grocery store, and they're usually in the fridge section. So what happens is these noodles actually firm up quite a bit, and a lot of you guys have written in to tell me that when you cook with these noodles, they always break apart into little bits and you don't know what's going on. So if I tried to just break these up now, they would all fall to bits. What you need to do is pop them in the microwave about 20 seconds so that they loosen up. I'll show you. So now that my noodles are a little bit warm, I can pick them up and they'll just come apart beautifully. Now you want to go through your entire pile here, just take a little bit of extra time, and this will mean that when you go to stir fry your noodles, they'll turn out much better. Now if you can't get a hold of these fresh rice noodles, I do have a video on how to make these from scratch, or you can just get a hold of the widest sized dried rice noodles you can from your supermarket and cook those before you stir fry. Now you can do this in a wok or a very large frying pan. The key thing here is get it uber hot. You really want a high heat here. Then add in your oil and some onion. Now add in that beef. Make sure you spread that out in the pan. I want as much of that beef surface area coming into contact with that hot pan as possible. Just give that beef a little chance to get some color on the first side, then get in there and stir fry. And now do that again. Leave the beef for a little bit before you go and stir fry it. I find this is the best way to handle a wok or wok cooking, stir fry cooking when you're at home and you don't have a super high heat like when you're in a restaurant. Just need to give that meat some time. Now the beef has got a little bit of color, it's almost cooked. I'm gonna add in my bean shoots, give those a quick toss. Now the noodles and our stir fry sauce. And this is where we bring everything together. So just keep tossing the noodles and the sauce until we get a situation where the noodles are softened and silky and that sauce is thickened up a little bit. So this is looking just perfect. I'm gonna add in some spring onion now. And now fresh rice noodles will not wait for anyone. They're best served straight away. Pop them out onto a plate. And there you go, guys. Just like I promised, beef noodles where the beef doesn't suck. I wonder if we could put that as a recipe title. Maybe, we'll see. Now I've got my special chopsticks here. Just secretly, I'm a little bit Hello Kitty obsessed. So beautiful. But do you know what? There's a real elegance and understated beauty about these noodles just as they are. Korean style stir-fried noodles, packed full of veggies, some stir-fried beef. This one is super simple, but a few little techniques will make it extra special. Let's do the beefy part first, and I'm going to make a marinade which is also going to be our stir-fry sauce, so that's a win. I've got my beef here. I'm just using some strip loin or sirloin steak today. The key is you want it sliced really nice and thin. Now to that I'm going to add some soy sauce and some sesame oil and some sugar. Now just give that a mix. Now because this is the soy sauce marinade, you really don't need to leave it for long, like literally just while I'm going to prepare everything else, otherwise it gets too salty and intense. Let's have a look at the vegetables next, and shiitake mushrooms is what I'm going for here. And a lot of you guys have asked me before about how do I clean the dirt off my mushrooms, and for me washing them under water just gets them all like soggy, and I don't know, I don't like it. So I like to go with a pastry brush and just give them a really good brushing, get any little bits of grime off there. And if you're using dried shiitakes here, they're great to use. You just need to soak them in some hot water first. Whoops, man overboard. We'll just leave that one down there. Casualty, first casualty of the day. Now whether you're using fresh or dried, I always take the stems off my shiitake mushrooms. I find they're a little tough, so they're not so great to chew on. If you happen to be making a stock anytime soon, you could keep a hold of them, pop them into your stock along with your other vegetables. And I just want to finely slice those. And the other thing I want here is some capsicum, and I want some really nice fine shreds of capsicum, so I'm going to go fairly close to the edge here when I'm cutting off my cheeks of capsicum. And I'll just pop those onto a plate with my finely sliced onion. So now for the noodles, and if you are able to get a hold of what's called Korean sweet potato starch noodles, they're the noodles that you want for this one, like typically, but I can't seem to find them here in Bangkok. If anyone knows where to get those particular noodles here in Bangkok, please put that in the comments below. So what I do when I make this dish at home is I use glass noodles or cellophane noodles. These are made out of mung bean, so they have a similar kind of slippery texture to the Korean sweet potato ones. They're not quite as thick, so that's the kind of difference here. The key thing is that these guys will overcook in like a second. So let's be prepared. I've got a bowl with some ice in here, and I've got my boiling water. Now normally I would advocate to soak these and not put them in boiling water, but I'm going to cook my spinach anyway, and I don't want to double up on the amount of energy to boil, you know, 2 lots of water. So we're just going to do it this way, the Danger Mouse way, but be vigilant. Okay, noodles go in, and literally like less than a minute, guys, 30 seconds even. I don't know, there's probably, you guys can probably see on the counter there how long this is. Take it out, take them out right now, and they'll kind of look like they're not quite cooked yet, but that's fine. They're going to keep cooking a little bit, and then we're going to stir fry them as well. So these get really soggy really easily, so definitely don't want to overcook them. All right, straight into the ice, and then just kind of separate them, give them some love, make sure they're nice and cool, and just drain them really well. And now the spinach. So I want a good lot of spinach here. I love this dish because it's got so many vegetables in it, and it's just such a nice, like, healthy weeknight thing to do. So I'm going to trim off the end of that, and then they go straight into the water as well. And again, this is one of those little technical things that, you know, is just much better when you get it right. Don't cook this for ages. Just plunge, take them out. And then you may as well, because you've got it, dunk those in the ice water as well. Okay, now squeeze out that water, and there's our spinach done. All right, so just, you know, even just the colors of everything set up here makes me so incredibly happy. I love a little spread like this, so many vegetables. Ah, great. Now we can get to the stir frying part. I'm gonna use this marinade, as I said before, as my stir fry sauce. So I'm gonna take the beef out of there. Let's give it a gentle squeeze. And keep that sauce for later. Now when your wok is nice and hot, add in some oil. In goes the beef. And just stir fry this until most of the pink is almost gone. But what I don't want to do is overcook this beef while I'm cooking everything else. So before it's done, I'm going to add in my onions. Now just give the onion like half a minute to do its thing, get a little tender in there. Now don't be tempted to kind of dump everything in. That's when you'll start to get a stir fry that sweats, becomes like very bland because of all the juice that runs out, because the wok or the pan's not staying hot enough. That's why you'll always see me add ingredients kind of one at a time whenever I'm doing a stir fry like this. Now I'm going to add in some garlic, and in go my mushrooms. Now my capsicum. And some shredded carrot. Now add in those noodles, and don't be scared, they're going to look like they're kind of all bunched up and clumpy at the moment. That's just what happens when noodles sit around for a little while. The sauce will loosen them up. Trust me. I want my spinach in there too, and that sauce. Now just start tossing everything through, and those noodles will start to loosen up. Oh, see what I mean about all those beautiful, cheerful colours? Such a joy. And if you've treated your noodles right, you should have a very loose looking noodle stir fry. Always treat your noodles nice. Okay, that is looking so good. Now we just get these out onto a plate. And a little sprinkling of sesame seeds at the end. And there you go, guys. A very simple Korean stir-fry noodle dish, but you know, get all those little bits and pieces right, and it really is something, you know, joyous and good and tasty. Let's see how we've gone here. That beef is so tender. Just the really simple mix of vegetables combined with that soy sauce and the garlic and those chewy noodles. I mean, it's the texture of the noodles that you really got to get right. I mean, that's the key here, right? Look at that, perfectly kind of chewy, not soggy at all. I am all about this Japanese stir-fry noodle dish. I love the little porky bits and the chewy noodles and a little stir-fry sauce that might have a few ingredients in it that would surprise you. This is Japanese yakisoba noodles. Okay, so first up we're going to talk about the noodles, and I'm really lucky here in Bangkok. I have a load of Japanese supermarkets to choose from. I can get all the different kinds of noodles I want. I know you guys have a little bit more trouble, but here we go. So these noodles are yakisoba Japanese noodles. They come in little packets like this. They do say soba, but it's not the buckwheat type of noodle for this. It's actually a wheat-based noodle. So whatever kind of wheat-based noodle you can get in your area, just go ahead and use those. If your noodles come in these little packets like this, these little cakes, I'm going to show you the tips that I have for breaking them apart. So if you pull them out, you can see that we've got a little bit of oily film here. I like to get that off before I start using them in a stir fry or a soup. So put these into some hot water Now grab some tongs, and you want to be patient and a little bit gentle here. Grab a hold of a noodle cake and just shake it really gently in the hot water. And do that for all of them. Packet instructions on these always say just go ahead and stir fry them from the noodle cake. Totally not possible. They just break up into clumps. Okay, so now we're looking pretty good. This has only been literally like less than a minute. Noodles are just about untangled, and I want to get them straight out into a wide, large plate, just so they don't cook too much. You could also put them in some cold water as well, to be on the safe side. Okay, so beautifully separate, lovely noodles ready for stir frying. I'm going to set those aside for later. Today I'm going to use pork belly for my noodles. I find that it has a really lovely soft texture, and that's right, with pork belly you can actually cook it really quickly and still keep it really tender. It doesn't have to be slow braised. So when you're buying the pork belly, look for pork belly. It doesn't have too much fat. There's obviously going to be a little bit of fat, but get one with a nice hunky bit of meat on it. And this one has some skin on it, which is not great for stir frying, so I'm going to take that off. Easiest way to do that is slice your pork piece in half first into strips. Now get your knife and kind of slide it in under a piece of skin on the side, and then flip the pork over and use that little piece that you've cut like a handle, and hold your knife steady and then wiggle that skin over the knife. And there you have the skin removed. Now I want this pork to cook really quickly, so I'm going to slice it very thin. So I've got my cabbage. I want my cabbage to maintain a little bit of structure and a little bit of crunch after I've stir fried it. So I don't want to slice it too thin here. I just want kind of like bite-sized pieces. So the other vegetable is my shiitake mushrooms. And these are dried, and I've had these guys soaking in some warm water for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. They're soft. I'm just going to squeeze them out. And then this center part, the stem, always with these dried mushrooms is just really firm and too tough to eat. So I cut those out and then just slice those up. And some spring onion. So I find with the spring onion, I like to stir fry the pale part at the beginning of my stir fry. It kind of lends more fragrance to the oil. And then the green part, I like to add at the end. So I'm going to slice the pale part into quite coarse kind of pieces, rough pieces. Put that in with my onion because they're going to go in together. And then these green parts I want in nice long battens. And for the stir fry sauce, we want some soy sauce and some oyster sauce. And then here are a couple of little surprise ingredients. So I've got some Worcestershire sauce and some ketchup. So you'll find there are quite a few Japanese dishes that have these little American or Western influences. And you can't even taste that there's Worcestershire or ketchup in the final stir-fried dish. It just sort of adds a tanginess and a little sweetness to the whole stir-fry. So there you go. Now, one little ingredient that I add that's not so traditional is dark soy sauce. I really like to add a little bit of color and then a little dash of sugar. You could use honey here as well if you like. And then just mix that through. Okay, so now we are ready to sizzle. Now in my hot pan, I've got a very wide pan here. So that's gonna be the best for stir frying a large quantity like we have here. Just gonna add a little bit of oil and my onion and spring onion tips. So I don't want my onions to cook too much. I'm just gonna push them to the side of the pan. Now I've got a big hot surface area for my pork. The pork goes in. And straight away you want to spread that pork out. Try to get all the bits making contact with that hot pan. Now just let that pork do its thing and sizzle for, up to about a minute. I want to see some really nice golden brown color when I turn those pieces over. Okay, let's have a look. And, oh yes, that's some beautiful color there. Toss everything together now. Now time for the carrot. It is in little strips, so it is going to cook pretty quickly, but it is the firmest of the vegetables we have, so it's going in first. Now once I can see that carrot wilting, now I'm going to get my cabbage in. Now give this a toss through, and I don't want to cook that cabbage too much. I still want some crunch there at the end. And now my shiitake mushrooms. And time for the noodles. Sauce goes on top. Look at all those beautiful earthy colours. Such a joyful, comforting kind of homey dish. Now just stir fry this and keep it moving in the pan. I kind of want the sauce to thicken ever so slightly so it just clings to each little strand of noodle and each little piece of pork. This is not a soupy, saucy kind of noodle dish. We want most of that beautiful flavour soaked up by everything in the pan. Finally, the green parts of those spring onions. Quick toss through. And that is it, my friends. Oh, look at those noodles. And then this is totally optional, but I love to keep these little Japanese pickles in my fridge. I eat them with all sorts of different things. But on noodles, they're the best. So just sprinkle a few of these on top. This is pickled ginger. And there you go. If you love noodles, you've got to give this one a try. One of my favorites, and so easy to make as well. Look at those steaming noodles, so good. I love the tanginess in these, and like I said, you cannot taste specifically the ketchup or the Worcestershire sauce. It's just a beautiful, savory, piquant, kind of slightly tangy sauce. Just delightful. This is the spicy Thai noodle you've probably never heard of, but I think you need to know about. This is my version of Pad Mi Korat Gung. So it's the noodle preparation technique that is make or break for this dish. So we're going to use these small, thin rice stick noodles, and this is the traditional noodle to use. So you might often find like the really thick pad thai kind of noodles, but if you can, try and get these smaller, thin ones. And the trick is not to just throw them in the boiling water. That's when you get really sticky, clumpy noodles. So the idea here is that we soak the noodles first, just in some room temperature water, and then they will soften up a little bit. We're gonna cook them in boiling water, but only for like a second, and then they go on the wok. And this is like your foolproof way to do your rice stick noodle cooking. You could do this with pad thai too. So there you go, the little trick to making the noodles work. All right, we need to make a sauce that works also. So let's get my pan heating up. Just want a little bit of oil here. And then palm sugar is my main ingredient for this one, and it just kind of comes in mainly these hard kind of cakes, so you do need to shave it off to soften it up before you heat it up. So my palm sugar goes into the oil and sugar. Now a lot of people describe this dish as like the spicy version of pad thai. I really like it. I think it has like a little bit more depth of flavor, a little bit more sour and salty than like a pad thai noodle. So definitely if you love pad thai though, you are gonna love this dish. Now just mix that around, and I'm just waiting for that palm sugar to dissolve. So Korat is actually a place, did you know, Dax?
Did not.
So I believe, unless I'm getting my Instagram accounts mixed up, but I think Korat is where like Chrissy Teigen is from, or her family, Vivian?
Is there a lot of gold
No,
in Korat?
it's not. I don't know. Is there a lot of gold in Korat? It's pretty good. So once you've got your sauce looking like this, kind of a little golden and caramelly, then you can go in with some garlic, some shallots. These are those small red Asian shallots. If you can't get a hold of those, you could use some like finely sliced red onion if you like. And the shallots and the garlic really need to cook in that oil / caramel kind of mixture in here. You can see, well, I can smell, they're sizzling, you can hear the sizzle. So that's really what you want here, because you don't want like that raw onion or raw garlic flavor at the end. And now we're going to add in this guy. So this is Thai soybean paste. Now have a look for it online. It is a fairly common ingredient to find, you know, in a Thai grocery store, an Asian grocery store, and it just adds a nice little kick of salty umami flavor. If you can't get a hold of it, just leave it out. But if you can, it's a nice addition. And then some fish sauce. Now some tamarind paste, and this is really what gives us like the sour flavor to the sauce. Just let that bubble away. I want those ingredients to really make friends in there. So by now your sauce should kind of be bubbling away and look like a dark caramel kind of texture. So that looks pretty cool. I'm just gonna loosen it up a little bit with some water. And then we haven't got spicy yet. We need the spicy. So I've got some Thai chili powder. And people always ask me actually, like, what is Thai chili powder? How is it different? So if you have a look here, Thai chili powder has like a mixture of seeds. The chilies themselves aren't really finely ground, so it's not like powder. You've kind of got like seeds, some of the chili, it's dried chili itself, and then a little bit of powder as well. So that's what you're looking for. Now this is the kind of situation you're after here. Nice, dark, thick-ish kind of sauce. Okay, let's get started in the wok here though before we cook those noodles. So just heat that up really nice and hot. Add in your oil. So I need some eggs here as well. Now when your oil's hot, add in your prawns. And when they're just cooked, just move them over to the side of the pan so you can pour in your beaten egg. We're just making an omelette situation here. So spread the egg out. Once it's nearly set, then you can start kind of like flipping it around, breaking it up a little. Now at this point, let's deal with our noodles. So you can see that they have softened up quite a bit here, and now they can go into the boiling water. And because they are softened, this takes literally a matter of seconds. Pull them straight out and then into your pan. As I said, if you've ever cooked with rice noodles and you've stir-fried them and they stick together, this is the only way to prevent that. So use it wisely, the information, my friends. Sauce over the top of those noodles. And you can see just how beautiful the texture of those noodles are. They're lovely and soft and shiny, but they're not sticking together. That kind of noodle really is like pure joy. Okay, I need some bean shoots here. And some spring onion. And we are ready to serve. And these do look quite similar to pad thai noodles, right? But they're spicy. And a little bit more kind of sour and like tangy. So a little bit of lime on the side. So there you go, my friends. Pad mi Korat gung. Let's get in here and try this, shall we? All right, let's try these noodles. Oh goodness, I'm so hungry right now. It's so good. It's spicy, tangy, salty, you know, it's got lots of intrigue there. That play with like the fish sauce and the tamarind is just really great. It's a really good noodle, my friends. And that noodle technique, you know, it's a killer. It's great. So good. Stir-fried noodles jam-packed with so many good things. Roasted pork, prawns, big chunky chunks of egg. This is my version of Singapore noodles. All right, let's get one thing straight before we start cooking, and that is you probably won't find these Singapore noodles in Singapore. In fact, in all the times I've been to Singapore, I've never once had them in Singapore, but you do find them in Australia and in America, mainly in Chinese restaurants. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they're not amazing noodles. They're just maybe incorrectly named. Anyway, whatever you want to call them, these noodles are epic and they're a great noodle dish to make for a crowd. I'm going to give you all my tips on how we can do that and still get the very best noodle stir fry. All right, so first up, let's make our barbecue pork. Now, if you live near a Chinatown in your city and you have access to some really good Chinese roast pork, please go ahead and grab that really good shortcut. But we're going to make a very quick version here. I've got some pork belly. And the first thing I want to do is take the skin off. The skin just will not get crispy in the amount of time that we've got. Now, I prefer pork belly or pork shoulder for making barbecue pork. A lot of recipes call for pork fillet or pork tenderloin. To be honest, it dries out in the oven and I just don't find it as juicy as your pork or shoulder cuts. So I'm going to cut this into 2 pieces. And then I've got some Chinese char siu barbecue sauce here that you can find in the Asian section of a lot of supermarkets these days. And that goes in along with a little bit of soy sauce. Now I do have the full-on homemade version of this recipe for char siu pork on my YouTube channel. So if you want to make the full long version, which is even tastier, head there and you can watch it. This one will do in a pinch. Okay, get those pieces out to a tray lined with some baking paper. Now pop that pork into a hot oven about 20 minutes or until it's cooked through and you can see some little charriness happening on the edges. So while the pork is cooking, that gives us plenty of time to get the rest of our stir-fry ingredients ready. So first up, I've got some rice vermicelli noodles here. Now, the noodle cooking part is super important for this, I've got to say. And a lot of you guys write in to tell me that your noodle dishes are a disaster because the noodles end up really soggy in the wok. Ugh, no one wants that. So let's go through it. You've got your dried vermicelli noodles here. Pour over some hot water. It's not boiling, it's steaming. And we're not boiling it in some water on the stove, we're just soaking them. Now just agitate those noodles a little bit as they're soaking and just leave them 2-3 minutes. Keep checking every minute or so, and just as soon as they're tender, you want to get them out. So in the meantime, I'm going to chop some vegetables, and I'm going with a red capsicum for this one. And some sugar snap peas as well. Now you could leave these whole. I quite like to slice them up because you're generally going to be eating this with some chopsticks and I want everything to be like a little bite-sized piece. Now let's check our noodles, and literally in that short time it took me to chop those vegetables, these are done. Just drain them really well, put them into a bowl. And they should be cooked and tender, but they should in no way be sticky and soggy at this point. Now for the eggs, I want a lot of like chunky bits of egg in my noodles, so I'm going to do 4 eggs for this one. Now we're going to make the egg omelette first, and to do that I want a hot pan, some oil. I'm doing this in a wok, which is a little trickier, so a non-stick frying pan is good as well if you're uncomfortable with doing this in a wok. And now, the trick to doing this is to spread the egg out using your spatula as it goes. Kind of need to do a bit of swirling as well. What I'm trying to do is even out that raw egg so I don't have big pools of eggs sitting anywhere. Now I always find this is a 2 spatula job. Okay, and now to flip it over, just be brave. Beautiful. I love that dark color in the center because it kind of gives everything a little bit of a smokiness in the finished dish. All right, that's looking very good indeed. Now just some nice chunks here. Because this pork is smelling amazing. And now I just want some nice, sweet little chunks here. Okay, so now it's time to get everything in the wok. And the great thing about this is that usually when you're wok frying, you want to do smaller amounts. But I find with this recipe, it tends to work out with a slightly larger amount because almost everything is cooked and we're going to get the raw ingredients cooked first up so that they don't stew and become all mushy. You'll see what I mean. Now when the wok's hot, I'm going to add some oil and some garlic and onion. And now some prawns. I do love that typical Asian pork and prawn combo. Now spread the prawns out in the pan because we want to get those, as I said, cooking and frying, not stewing. Technique's always very important when you're stir frying. Okay, now toss those prawns a little. Now when those prawns have just turned opaque, meaning they're cooked through, I'm going to add in my vegetables. I just want to stir fry these for a minute or so until those vegetables are still nice and crispy, but just taking that raw edge off them. Some Chinese Shaoxing wine. So now we've got all the ingredients that needed cooking, beautifully stir fried. They're not soggy, they're still nice and crispy. The prawns are just tender. So now I'm going to add in my cooked ingredients. Noodles, my egg and pork, and now for the seasoning. some soy sauce. And here's what gives the Singapore noodles its distinctive character, and that is just a little dash of curry powder. And then to balance out everything, a little sprinkling of sugar. And now we toss. So this isn't a saucy noodle dish. This should really just have enough liquid to coat each strand of noodle, but not be soaking in sauce. Look at all those colors. And you can see just how beautiful and light and separated all those noodles are. Okay, time to serve up. I love having a big mound of these in the center of the table to share with friends. Oh, these noodles always bring me so much joy. So many beautiful flavors there. You've got that nice little hit of curry powder, and then that chunky egg and the sweet pork. So yum.